Greetings and welcome to this episode of Bring It On. My name is Bob Hayes and I'm going to be your show host. Today, I have a school committee candidate from the town of Whitman who's looking to be re-elected, Fred Small. Fred, how are you? It's
Great,
good to
Bob.
see you.
Nice to see you again.
Well, we're going to get into the Whitman-Hanson school budget because, as you know, it's the most contentious part of what's going on in two towns in both of the budgets. But first, tell the voters a little bit about Fred Small.
Oh, let's see. I married a Whitman girl, so she's considered to be a townie. I've been here since the 90s and put two kids through Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. 3 grandchildren, one of which is graduated and off to his new life, so to speak. Just try to live my life and, do the right thing. And I enjoy participating in various community activities and boards.
What boards were you on, Fred? I know you've been on quite a bit, going back into the building of the high school.
Oh, building the high school building committee, FinCom. I've got some good background. The DARE committee way back in the day, when there was a DARE committee. Now you're making me think here. We have just a lot of various groupings, so to speak, that I've been involved in.
How long have you been on the school committee?
This will be my 4th term if the voters are if I'm lucky enough to have the voters re-elect me. So 12 years, just about.
I jumped ahead of myself a smidge. Don't you have a grandson that's on the Whitman Fire Department too?
He was recently named onto fire.
Okay.
That's the one starting his new career.
Okay.
Very proud of him.
That's awesome. That's cool. So you're a semi-townie, just because you weren't born and brought up here. I know that Nancy's a townie.
Yeah, by injection, might as well say.
Yeah, I get that. So the school budget for years, and I mean, everybody I think pretty much knows I was on the school committee for 18. I was the chair for 15. So I kind of understand the budget, but it changes every single year. And usually one of the contentious points about the school budget is the total amount. People get the total amount confused with the assessment to the towns. Like this year's budget being $63 million, I think, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
If that went up 10%, it'd be up $6.3 million. But the assessments would be different. Can you explain the difference between the total budget number and the assessments to two towns?
If it went up 10%, you'd have a very happy superintendent, by the way.
Yes.
But so what you have your $63 million. Think of it as a piece of pie. Then you take from that pie your Chapter 70 funding. So
Stop just for 1 second, Fred.
Yeah.
Chapter 70 funding, where does that come from and how do they get it? And by the way, remind me, Julie Kelly sent a notice today that the projected revenue for the state is up $129 million more than they projected.
129 million above benchmark.
Right.
Which they're normally above benchmark. This is the first time in a year that they're above what they've estimated. Now, mind you, they've changed their estimates so that they've lowered them so that it can look higher, but still good news, especially with House Ways and Means meeting next week to determine the budgets for the House and the Senate.
Okay.
So very, very good news.
It just popped into my head. I had to say that. You probably got the same alert, but let's get back to assessment.
So Chapter 70 is the monies that the state gives us. We've been in what's called hold harmless.
How much approximately, before you move on? I'm trying to get numbers because the budget is very difficult for the people who may be watching.
40-something% of our budget is made up from state money, or 24 million, 25 million. The rest is assessed to the two towns based upon a formula. We can sit here all day and discuss the formula because it goes into what the value of homes are. Very, very complex. But it comes out with a split in which Whitman pays just under 60%.
Their total assessment this year is $20,500,000 and $864. $20,500,864.
Yeah, and some of that includes mandated or non-mandated busing, plus some of it includes some debt service for some various
Exactly.
projects, and of course paying off the new high school.
Yes, and I've got those numbers. We can get into that
Still
shortly.
call it the new high school when it's
It's 20
20
years
years
old.
old.
We were both there, Fred.
Yeah, that was.
So go ahead, continue on with assessment. I know I keep interjecting
so-
facts.
And basically, if you look at a town's budget, and I can speak far more eloquently on Whitman's share of things than I
course you
can
can.
Hanson. But if you look at their share, their revenues go up by 2.5% of property tax, and the meager amount the state gives the town. So they work within very, very strict margins of how much more money they get on an annual basis to fund all their town services and increase town services, because you have contractual obligations, police, fire, DPW, town hall workers, a library. You've got quite a few workers out there that need additional monies every year.
So would it be a fair statement for me to say the average person who lives in the town of Whitman or Hanson could look at last year's budget, could add in what, let's say, give it 2.5%, because 2.5 is the amount that it's allowed to go up at its maximum. Look at the contracts and come up with a figure of approximately where the budget's going to be in the next fiscal year, other than new growth and a few other things. Because Whitman and Hanson don't get a lot in a regional school district from the state, a lot more increase to take up the balance difference.
Right, we get $30 per pupil right now.
Okay.
Now, you could, and in a perfect world, but in the world that we live in, the towns actually allocate to us up to a 5% increase. And they ask the school district to be able to work within those parameters.
To get to the 5%, was this kind of recommended by the Madden report?
This was part of the Madden report that
Okay.
was done.
It's coming back to me in Whitman because, I'm a
Yeah.
Hanson guy, but I've worked the budget for many years.
And then the Madden report was also done for Hanson most recently.
Yes.
But one of the members of that Madden commission was the superintendent.
Okay.
So he was very familiar with how the soup was cooked, so to speak.
Okay.
Now, in being able to meet different obligations, especially with what happened with COVID, we find ourselves at a very large crossroad, because the district has had to have interventionists. We've had to do what is needed for kids in programs and services to bring them back up to where they would be or should be, depending upon grade and reading level, etc. And I've got to give credit to our administration. We've done that. We have the large task of being able to continue those things. So on one hand, you have the needs of the children and the needs of the district. And on the other hand, you have the town's abilities to afford those items. I'd like to see us actually do more for kids. It was brought to our attention a couple of years ago, robotics. There's a course that could be offered through the school district. It was about $57,000, $58,000 across the way. It wasn't in the budget. God, I wish it was. I'd love to see that program, within our parameters. Foreign language, something else that was cut many years ago, we don't offer at all. You look at what we're required to do for the state now with English language learners. Hanson has very few. Whitman has a multitude. And when I say a multitude, we're either approaching or have eclipsed the 200 mark for English language learners.
Meaning students.
Students. We're required by law to provide these services, but yet we don't get any funding to provide these services.
Well, now that you've mentioned that, Fred, when you talk about the funding and the ESSER funds and what has transpired, when the state makes mandates such as these and they're not funded, now what do? Do they end up in the budget and it costs the taxpayers more money? Because I think that's a question they need answered.
It has to. Okay, so you have unfunded mandates, but they are mandates. We can't tell DESE, oh no, we don't want to do that. We may be able to tell them, no, we don't want to have volleyball in gym, or something like that. But when they say, no, you have to have volleyball in gym, you have to have volleyball in gym. Well, they're saying you have to provide these students these services, and we have to do it. We don't have a choice. So it has to come out of the budget, and it has to come from somewhere. So whether that's in our operating budget and we pass along the assessments, etc., we need to find a way to pay for it. I know this year budget there's a very, very large contentious budget. I don't know exactly when this is going to air. I do know we're having an emergency meeting come Monday night with the school committee. That's April 8th to talk about the assessments, etc.
So if you're having this emergency meeting, does that mean, and we hate to date shows, but it's an important question, does that mean the budget isn't etched in stone yet?
It's not etched in stone yet. However, you do have the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 9th in both towns. And, if we're going to end up looking at an override, perhaps for a portion of our operating budget, to me it's a Band-Aid. I would rather see us come, fall. Let's put together, what our needs are, and let the taxpayer decide.
By a Band-Aid, Fred, do you mean, that's kind of a difficult question or a difficult answer. If it goes through like the way it is proposed, by putting a Band-Aid on it, are there greater needs? Is that what you mean? Put it all in one bowl?
There are other needs,
Okay.
such as I mentioned, robotics, and I mentioned foreign language. Those are two things that are near and dear to my heart.
I understand.
There are other needs as well, but to be able to put together a 5-year plan. So I don't know that the taxpayer enjoys a school district coming back, and stating, to us, to them, I should say, year after year, hey, we only need X amount of dollars more in the budget, to fulfill our operating costs. Hey, it's only another $1 million, and I'm just throwing a number out
I
there.
get that, yeah.
So fix it. Fix what our projections are. Fix what it's going to, cost us to provide these services, and have a 5-year plan so there's some certainty. And that's the hard thing about budget and budget forecasting. We also have negotiations. We also have, the most employees out of any town. People don't realize the biggest employer is the school district.
If you added the employees from both towns, where would it come as far as what the school district has?
I don't know the exact numbers, between 400 and 500.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that work for the district.
Yeah. Well, they service a lot of children, students.
Yes, absolutely. We have 3,500 and some odd enrolled pupils right now.
People are talking about student enrollment declining. Why does the budget increase? Does that have anything to do with mandates or what's going on?
And what happens at times is, let's say you have 10 students leave, and it's from grade 2 to 11. You lose students, and it's 1 student per grade. Well, you're not going to notice that in a class. Now, if you had 10 students in the 2nd grade leave, then you would probably notice it and be able to make a substantial cut. So it's over time that you're able, to make those subtractions. But for the near future, we've lost, when you and I were there, when I first started, There's 4,300 pupils.
Approximately, yeah.
And now you're down 800. But if you divide that 800 over, 12 years, we do have full day K now. So you could say 13 years. It's not as impactful as you might think, number one. And then number two, you also have the services you're required. Parents, and my God, it's their right, to exercise. They want the best for their children. And you have more people on individual learning plans these days. IEPs. And they're entitled to these things, okay? We're obligated, and gosh, in this society, we should be obligated, to provide a student, with the level of services that they need. Kids need a good education. It's the pathway to success. And whether you're a carpenter, a plumber, if you don't have the proper foundation, if you don't know how to add, well, how are you going to cut a 2x4 the proper length if you can't add? So we owe them that proper education.
All right, I'm going to change it up just a smidgen, Fred, because this is a question that I've had people ask me. And you'll see at the end of the show when I wrap up, I give them my phone number. I tell them I want questions. I give them my email address. Because these are all relevant things. That's why we're doing the show.
Sure.
Neither one of us are getting paid to do the show. We're both here as volunteers.
Yeah, and I'll take the opportunity, if you don't mind. Think big, vote small.
Exactly.
And my phone number is 781-523-1900. You push option 3 for Fred, you will get me.
All right.
So I give my phone number as well.
Well, let's talk about ESSER funds. ESSER seems to be, it's elementary and secondary. It's an acronym for a longer term. But there was a lot of stuff passed around ESSER money during COVID. And people are stating that, they added a whole bunch of programs and added a ton of employees. Where did this money go, and how is it supposed to be funded afterwards? And were there requirements on taking the ESSER money that there was certain things you had to do with it?
Well, you're dealing with the federal government, okay, on ESSER.
Yeah.
When it first came out, it could only be spent in a very, very narrow window. As time went on, it opened up a little.
Wait a minute,
rule
let
of
me
thumb.
stop you for 1 second.
Yep.
ESSER money came to towns, and it also came to school districts. The different parameters were different. Like towns could buy a truck if it went to this.
Well,
but
that was ARPA.
Right. Well.
And we got ARPA too.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. But ESSER originally, there were different parameters originally.
That's what I'm getting to, with the different parameters. Because people seem to think it was just a checkbook that came out and you could spend it any way you want.
No, you could have bought equipment. You could have bought some IT, if I'm not mistaken. And I know it was the decision of our administration to funnel the money directly back to pupils and in programs.
Enriching programs.
Enrichment, and to level the playing field. In other words, to take the students that were home for God knows how long, and stuck in the house with COVID, and we did our best with, doing the telecommuting.
Oh, yeah. Remember we used to do meetings over the...
Yeah, over the Zoom originally.
Yes.
And we discovered that that's not the ideal way of getting an education. Not for, from youngsters on up. So these children, and I shouldn't say these children, all children, needed to be brought back to a baseline. And I know I sat in a meeting and I warned our administration, you're spending one-time money on services. What are you going to do if the services are needed after the one-time money? Because we spent millions doing this.
Okay.
And here we are today. We still have the services that are needed. Our scores are beautiful. We're at a great benchmark. We're at a great level when it comes to, what we're doing with the, compared to other districts in the state. Our kids are excelling.
So it's working?
It's working. Doesn't mean we can't do better. We have to figure out how. Because at the same time, you have to balance what the town can afford and what their ability to pay is.
That was going to be my next question. And You
Okay.
led me right into that road. Go ahead.
The ability of the town and the ability of the taxpayer. We don't have a large commercial tax base here. We're not a Braintree that can tap into the South Shore Plaza. Or Hanover, who incidentally I'm hearing are having their own struggles, and look at the big Hanover Mall that they have, or all the construction and the redoing. What's it called? Hanover Crossing now. I think?
Pretty much finished, Fred.
Yeah. So we don't have those resources. We have small resources. We've got a beautiful downtown district. We've got a Cornerstone drugstore in Duval's. Been there for many, many, many moons. You've got your pizza places. You did have a bank in Santander that's gone. So there's a piece of property there that's just sitting there. You have your dry cleaners. You have McWiggins. You have the patio. You have some beautiful, fine establishments, but it's 1.5 blocks.
It's peanuts compared to what a lot of the bigger towns have.
Exactly. And how much are you really bringing in on that revenue? It's negligible. So that's the second part, and that's more of a town issue, but it's a people issue, and it's a taxpayer issue. The taxpayer came out, and they voted for us to have a new middle school. Wonderful opportunity. I'm fortunate enough to chair that committee. Mm-hmm. And we're very fortunate that we have that coming up. It's going to be a wonderful facility. And, I know myself and, others in the committee, have the attitude. It's going to be built like the high school, on budget, or under budget, and on time. And that's the other thing people forget we did on the high school, was under budget and on time. We can do it. With the ingenuity and rolling up the sleeves, we can do anything.
Well, I think the taxpayers of Whitman, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. You've got a DPW building, you've got a school building, you've got a lot going on in the town of Whitman. And then how do we fix a budget? So I know we're winding down a little bit. That's why I'm kind of trying to get us. We only have so much time, Fred. Yeah. You and I could talk for days. So how do you fix this? How do we end up so everybody comes out okay? I know the town of Hanson, I'm interviewing some select people I already have, and they're talking about the issue because they have the same Madden report. And it's amazing, the Madden report came up with 5% for Hanson, 5% for Whitman. Max.
It's a good rule of thumb.
And this is to give you some sort of a 5%, some sort of a rolling average so you know what's predictable.
Yeah.
Correct?
Exactly. And
how do we get there?
Well, it looks like right now we're looking at a Band-Aid. We'll find out again Monday night, more so. But the taxpayer, and it truly ends up being up to them. It's the taxpayer's decision. All the district needs to make its case as to what its needs are and what those needs are for. And if it makes sense to people, they're going to vote for it and find a way to do it. The good news is, it's not the $1,100 we were talking about, originally, with the middle school. Mm-hmm. It's far, far less. But again, it's an impact to people's household into their budget. Everyone has their own personal decision to make. But I will remind everyone that lives in town they also went through public school, or they went through school. Yeah.
So, Fred, if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, your opinion is leave it up to the voters.
We're going to have to.
School committee is going to make a recommendation.
Well, the school, we're going to do what we can within the parameters we're given. And if those parameters can't be enough, then two things have to happen. Okay, number one, you ask the voters. If the voters say yes, and you've made your case, you're okay. If the voters say no, we're not paying, then we've got to take an internal look and what can we do? Whether it be, gigantic class sizes or increased class sizes, whether it be programs like when they cut, foreign languages, you look at those things. What has to be sacrificed? Sometimes, the district may have to sacrifice. They sacrificed before, a few years ago. Is it going to have to be, that much of a sacrifice again? I don't know.
All right, Fred. Well, we're just about out of time. I want you to tell the voters of Whitman why they should re-elect a 3-term school committee member for a 4th term.
I think first and foremost is experience. Knowing, my way around the budget. Because I was a lost lamb at first. I fortunately had a good chair that allowed me to understand how things worked, and gave me the time in which to figure it out. But then I thought I was a pretty quick learner. But you rely on your experience. You look at the person as to, what do they want to accomplish? And my answer is very simple for myself. I want to see every student in Whitman and Hanson get the education that they not only deserve, but the best education we can possibly provide for them. That to me is the most important thing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed today's show. Fred Small, 3-term person currently looking for a 4th term. My name's Bob Hayes. I'm your host of the show. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you've learned something from it. I would like your input. You can contact me at bobhayes4433@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 617-538-0189. Any questions, any opinions are warranted. This is how the voters get an idea to see what's going on in election 24. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.